morning, everyone.
Welcome. Eric's going to start the prelude in a moment. I invite you to find your seats and to listen in this particular prelude for a familiar and beloved tune. It's so good to see you here this morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to First Parish in Concord on this beautiful, beautiful day. Some of us have gathered here in the sanctuary at First Parish in Concord, and others of us have gathered online from home. We are all together as one congregation gathered this morning. I want to welcome you, no matter where you're joining us from, be it right here in Concord or the surrounding towns, be it across the United States or somewhere else in the world. you are welcome at this service. We want to welcome you in. We hope this hour revitalizes your soul, lifts your spirit, and gives you things to think about and joy and hope to take away with you. Welcome to church this morning. We learned some things last week, as you would imagine. Mostly it went really well. I want to stress a couple of things. First of all, for the folks who are here in the sanctuary, as always, anything we do is perfectly optional. We are just trying to do the best we can to keep this congregation safe and to offer an opportunity for folks to gather in person. So if you don't want to sing, you don't have to sing. If you don't want to share during the time of sharing, you don't have to do that. I want to let you know that the choir will sing one anthem from the balcony, and we all will sing the closing hymn together. So you get to decide what level of participation you take in all of this, and we're glad you're here this morning. And for folks on Zoom, I'm glad that Adrian is there to help you through the service. Things will appear in the chat as we go along, and just do your best at home. Let us have church this morning. Our call to worship this morning are words by Dorothy Day, and we all know Dorothy Day was not easy. She was not easy. She was the founder of the Catholic Worker and had an eye for the poor, was someone who was admired, but not easy. Listen to these words of hers. People say, "What is the sense of our small effort? They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time, take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has the right to sit down and feel hopeless. There is too much work to do." Let us worship together.
My friend, the Unitarian Universalist musician and worship leader and community organizer Matt Meyer, sometimes talks about when he's feeling timid about speaking up against an injustice, and he sometimes tells himself, "This is practice for next time." And that can be true in all things, and so I invite you in this moment as we light our chalice to connect with your heart, or connect with your breath, or connect with our flame, knowing that we do this each week. We live each moment as practice for next time. Let us join together in our response for our chalice lighting. The words will be in the chat if you're on Zoom, or they're on one of our walls, the one to your left, if you're here in the sanctuary. O flame of our faith, open our hearts and fill our souls with bodies and souls with persistent strength. Enliven our spirits and engage us deeply in this work of ours, this sacred, essential moment now. Let's continue with some centering music.
this morning is by Thomas Merton, the Catholic scholar. We are living in the greatest revolution in history, a huge, spontaneous upheaval of the entire human race. Not a revolution planned and carried out by any particular party, race, or nation, but a deep, elemental boiling over of all the inner contradictions that have ever been. A revolution of the chaotic forces inside everybody. This is not something we have chosen, nor is it something we are free to avoid.
Our responsive reading is in the back of your gray hymnal. It's number 576. If you're on Zoom, you will see the response in the chat. Number 576, A Litany of Restoration by Reverend Marjorie Bowens-Wheatley. I will read the Roman type, and I invite you to read the italicized. If, recognizing the interdependence of all life, we strive to build community, the strength we gather will be our salvation. If you are black and I am white, if you are female and I am male, if you are older and I am younger, if you are progressive and I am conservative, if you are straight and I am gay, if you are Christian and I am Jewish, if we join spirits as brothers and sisters, as siblings, the pain of our aloneness will be lessened, and that does matter. In this spirit, we build community and move toward restoration.
You can go ahead and settle in for the sermon. It's a little odd working without an order of service, but we are doing the best we can. Yesterday, a couple of hundred people came to Washington, D.C. for a pro-insurrectionist rally in support of people who rampaged in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. They came because they have been emboldened by a former president. They came because they knew no harm would come to them at the hands of the Capitol Police. They came for a fight with counter-protesters. They came because they want to live in a country where conservative, religious, white people rule. Given the media coverage of the event, their impact was large. We would be wise not to dismiss their scant numbers and shrill message. They represent an armed, authoritarian trend in the United States that extends to every community in our country. They represent fascism. In his book on tyranny, Timothy Snyder, a historian of authoritarian regimes, worries that Americans have seen liberal democracy as our inevitable future for so long that we are unprepared to respond to the possibility of an authoritarian future. It is not enough to believe that all will be well, he insists. We have to practice shaping the society we want and resisting the kind of society we do not. Now, I believe that church is one of the best places to practice for the society that we want. The simple act of gathering as a group with diverse thoughts and religious beliefs strengthens our society. The ability to be patient and determined protects democracy. The willingness to see others protects the most vulnerable in our society. What people who were vulnerable under repressive regimes remember later, Snyder says, is how their neighbors treated them. During the purges of Eastern Europe or Nazi Germany, a greeting or a handshake meant a great deal. Such gestures made those who were vulnerable to the violence of the regime feel safer. But when their neighbors averted their eyes, or when they met or crossed the street to avoid them, those same people felt more fearful. And with good reason, he continues. People who are isolated in society are much easier for authoritarian regimes to harm than those who are held, seen, and remembered in community. Making eye contact and exchanging greetings are practices by which we recognize each other's humanity and knit each other into a shared life. One of the things I have always liked best about church is that it's about the most low-tech thing that you can do. It's meeting people face to face, hearing each other's voices in real time. Church is an incarnation. Now COVID-19 has forced us to interact with each other differently. I know that I am not alone in resenting the electronics needed to enable this new way of being. I doubt any previous minister of First Parish in Concord could have imagined cameras in the sanctuary and half the congregation joining us from home. Whenever I find myself over by Orchard House, my mind drifts back to the 19th century. I imagine the Alcotts on a Sunday morning leaving Orchard House for the half-mile walk over here to church. In winter, I imagine them all bundled up. In spring, with their boots on. In summer, in shirt sleeves. And in fall, with new clothes purchased for school. I imagine Louisa May Alcott and her family chatting merrily on their way here and exchanging the news they had gleaned at church on the way home. In their day, as in ours, church meant gathering. It meant seeing people. It meant participating in common rituals. It meant helping out. When the various innovations came to First Parish in Concord over its long history, they were all initially resented and resisted. The first bell was scorned by some in the Puritan congregation and was hung on the limb of a nearby tree because there was no bell tower on the church. The first pipe organ was considered extravagant and overly Anglican. The presence of restrooms and a kitchen in the church made some wonder if God was no longer the focus in this commodious place. Microphones and electronic keyboards and television screens came later, each bringing discomfort when they arrived, and now we have cameras in the sanctuary. Now we text offering donations on our cell phones. Now, anyone in the world who wants to can see our services on YouTube anytime they like. Ezra Ripley must be laughing in his crypt across the street. Timothy Snyder says, making eye contact and exchanging greetings are practices by which we recognize each other's humanity and knit each other into a shared life. That is surely more challenging these days. According to Hannah Arendt, one of the 20th century's brightest scholars, totalitarianism is marked by the destruction of the boundaries between public and private life. Let me repeat that. Totalitarianism is marked by the destruction of the boundaries between public and private life. She would have been horrified by the internet and social media. To her, cultivating a robust private life is an act of resistance. Private practices are as important as their public counterparts because they keep us in dialogue with ourselves and with others. Now, we all have a vision for a society we want, but it is the practice that is going to bring it about. To practice something, we have to show up. We have to be present. We have to pay attention. We have to concentrate. We have to let go of our own egos. We have to be willing to fail. Religious practices are just that, learning as you go. One of the reasons our services often look so much alike is because they are a form of practice. It takes years of repetition to have a meaning sink in. The body has to form a muscle memory. The brain has to rewire itself. And that is all a practice is. It is just the repetition of a healthful thing until it lives within us. We are on a bumpy path as a nation. Democracy is no longer guaranteed in America. Fascism can take root here if allowed. We are about 6 years into a new chapter of our nation's history, a chapter in which right-wing extremist forces are emboldened to act. Many of the most vulnerable in our society will feel a direct threat from these forces. Fascism always seeks to take down the weakest first. This assault is what we must resist as religious people. We must strengthen the connections between us and then extend them outward. The most amazing thing a congregation like ours can do is to see vulnerable communities and to stand with them. The thing insurrectionists like those who gathered in Washington, D.C. fear the most is white people standing with people of color. They fear straight people standing with queer people. They fear men standing with women. They fear native-born Americans standing with immigrants. Practicing for the society we want means watching out for the most vulnerable among us. COVID-19 has not changed the need for us to watch out for each other. Indeed, it has made it all that much more important. As we resist all wedges being driven between people, we will see the bullies slink away. And if it takes a camera in the sanctuary to make that happen, then so be it. Your presence on a Sunday morning makes a difference, here or at home. We can each show up for each other in so many ways, even amid a pandemic. And as we practice, we will become stronger and surer. The bonds of our community will hold more and more, and the world we imagine will begin to emerge. so be it. Amen. I'd like you to take a minute or two, either with the person that you came to church with or scoot just a little bit closer. You can chat over about 3 or 4 feet. Take a couple of minutes and talk with each other on this question. How do you practice for the society you want? How do you practice for the society you want? I'll ring a chime 3 times to start us and again to end our conversation. Please be in conversation with one another. If you're watching on Zoom, I invite you to put your answers into the chat.
Hearts open, minds awake, change us now from heaven's sake. Lead us not alone in hatred's wake. Show us how to love, show us how to love, show us how to love.
Unitarian Universalism is a religion all about love. First Parish, a congregation all about love. I invite you at any time to reach out if you could use a little extra love. If somebody in your family or one of your friends is having a hard time and you could use support, offering them that extra love. I invite you to share with one another what's going on in your lives, and you can always do that by asking me or whoever is leading this part of the service to lift you up in our time of prayer. If you're on Zoom, you'll see this more fully in the chat. If you're in person, I'll share more in my weekly pastoral email. But this week, our pastoral list is simply one person. Sarah, our administrator, is slowly recovering from a concussion. So we hold her in our hearts. We send her our prayers for healing. She needs to minimize screen time, but cards are welcome. You can send them here to the church, and we'll make sure they get to her. Who else is on your minds and on your hearts today? I invite you to call their names aloud if you're here or at home, or to type them in the chat if you're at home. And as we move into Anderson leading us in Spirit of Life, I invite you, if you wish, to hum along.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow when the wind, rise in the sea, moving the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Spirit of life and love, Spirit of justice, show us how to love. We must learn to love. Show us how to love for all who are in need of healing. For Sarah, for those who are injured, those who are unwell, everybody with COVID-19, everybody who is working in a job of service. Show us how to love and send our love to those who are in need of healing. When we are learning to be an incarnation, to be alive together, united across our differences, show us how to love. When we act against injustice, show us how to love. When the bullies arise in our hearts or in our world, show us how to love. When we are confronted with challenges and changes, show us how to love. when we would knit each other into a shared life. Show us how to love. When we practice for the world we want, show us how to love. When we strive to join our spirits as siblings, show us how to love. And let love be our guide. Let love guide us always. Blessed be and amen. Let us sit in this space of love, in this stillness together for a moment. And I invite you either to stay in this settled space or to hum along as Anderson leads us in Find a Stillness.
Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
At this time, I would like to invite Regina Corrao to come forward and light the social action candle. Come on up, Regina.
Thank you. I thought you just asked me to. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm from the Immigration Justice Task Force. Over the past weeks, we've added to our list of concerns and priorities the plight of Afghan refugees fleeing. Is there anyone who hasn't been touched by the stories and pictures of desperate people trying to get out of their country? Over these weeks, the task force has worked to vet local resettlement organizations to confirm that they are viable partners for us in this resettlement work. We've had excellent conversations, we've learned a lot, and we're assured that we have partners in this work, and there is much work we must do. Approximately 1,000 evacuees will be arriving in Massachusetts over the next 2 to 4 weeks. If we're lucky, we'll have 1 week's notice of their arrival. The immediate need is for short-term temporary housing, 1 to 3 months in either an in-law apartment, a carriage house, or a part of a house where there is some privacy. The next immediate need will be for reasonable rates of apartments for longer-term rentals. If you have information about either of these options, please let me or Tony Rodriguez know. We'd be very grateful. The next immediate need will be for willing hands and hearts to tutor, teach English, grocery shop, accompany people to appointments, move furniture, and the like. Remember, these are individuals arriving with nothing. Many have been and are traumatized. Their needs will be great. If you see yourself being involved in a hands-on kind of way, you will need a recent Corey check. That's a criminal background check. Just got mine and I passed. Fifi Ball has agreed to process those for us. So if you are interested in this hands-on work, please contact Fifi. Much is still being sorted out with the government and the resettlement organizations. We're staying abreast of the changes and we'll update you as we get them, primarily through FP Weekly. Please think about what you can offer and are able to do for these new neighbors. For a while, they will be the most vulnerable among us. The needs are great. You are needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. Now is the time for the offering. If you are here in the sanctuary, there's a number on a piece of paper up here, as low-tech as it gets. You can text that to your cell phone. If you brought cash with you or a check, one of the ushers will have an offering plate available at the end of the service to collect those back there in the back. Of course, if you are at home, please text to the plate. In the month of September, we are sharing the plate with the Children's Room. The Children's Room creates safe, supportive communities so that no child, teen, or family has to grieve alone by providing free peer-based grief support groups. So please, text a number that will help support First Parish in Concord and the Children's Room. The morning offering will now be gratefully received.
As we move towards the close of our service, I have a piece of congregational news to share with you. Adrian Betancourt, our social action manager, will be leaving us at First Parish at the end of this month. We will definitely miss her. Adrian decided that with the ongoing pandemic and all of life's challenges, it was just best for her to stay rooted in her community in the Metro DC area, where she has some really tight-knit relationships. She shares that she's really grateful for her 2 years here, almost 2 years, and all of the relationships here that she's been able to grow. And we are very grateful to her for the work that she has done. Especially, Adrian, I'll miss your calm but passionate presence. So I invite you all to continue reaching out to Adrian, and of course, if you are interested in social action, there is so much going on that you can continue to be involved with and to get involved with. That's not for another week and a half, so as we draw back to today, I invite you to coffee hour. I invite you to worship sharing circle. The coffee hour, if you're in person, will be out on the terrace and on the whole lawn that you can get some coffee. If you're not able to distance, please stay masked. And of course, as we adjust to each other's risk tolerance and comfort level, it's good to mask up when you see another person masked as a sign of showing respect and increased safety with each other. If you are new to our congregation as a visitor or newcomer, you'll find a little connection card in your pew. And we also will have a welcome table out at coffee hour. Also at coffee hour, Virginia Taylor will be with us as our standing committee representative. That's our body of elected lay leaders. If you have questions about church or about, church, please see her. If you prefer a more intimate gathering or prefer a more structured conversation, the worship sharing circle is for you. You can find the worship sharing circle to the right of the sanctuary by the Right Tavern, to the right by the right, or on Zoom. You'll see the link appear in a few minutes to join. We are doing a wonderful multi-platform experiment with that. I've heard it's going well. Thank you, Jim and Data, for leading that. Let's sing together. Anderson is going to lead us, and
please join us, hymn number 131. Rise as you're able. Love will guide us, peace has tied us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from great to great. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Love will guide us, for if we have love, we have all we need. All that we need to go out into this world, this beautiful and perilous world, this world that needs each of us and needs us to practice the society we want to see. Please join in the First Parish benediction saying, "Go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, honor all beings." Please come out to coffee hour.